Okay, the crone. So the crone is the archetype that we arrive in when we're on our bleed, on our menstrual cycle. So when we have our period, and the crone is the archetype that we arrive in towards the end of life, the kind of the ending and then the beginning, because nothing ever dies. It just transitions into a different energy. And so the crone is after, once we've hit menopause, the later years in life. And the crone is the north and the element is the earth. And so when we think of the crone, she's more that yin energy of sitting on her throne. She's lived her life, she's done everything she needs to do, and she's standing firmly over her domain. So there's such an intense inner knowing to her, and a wise ancient wisdom. And in our day-to-day, we don't respect the crones, the ancient wise women, as we did with our ancestors. And so that's starting to come back, the elders that we listen to and revere and adore and respect and learn from them. And so that's the crone kind of when we're transitioning through the cycles throughout our life. And so when we come into our inner crone each month on our bleed, it's that same deep listening and deep respect that we should, I want to say, or used to have for our elders. And so when we're on our bleed in our crone, it's like just coming into that deep receptive space of listening to the inner wisdom, the inner wise woman. And our blood is such a potent superpower. And when we're on our bleed, and we can think about like the crone in society being not listened to or respected, just kind of washed to the side. And it's the same as our period. It's been shamed and, it's disgusting, it's inconvenient, all those different types of words that come to it because of the patriarchal conditioning. And so when we're on our period, there's been kind of this notion to just keep going. Nothing is cyclical, in our systems or our constructs. And so when we're on our period, we're usually doing the exact same thing that we're doing throughout the rest of our cycle. And so it's kind of just cast aside. It's an inconvenience. And as we start to deepen that respect for our elders and the wise women as our teachers and our healers and how we can learn from them, that's the same with our period. When we tune into our period and get really quiet and still and slow down, like really slowing down, that's when we can hear our own ancient wise self, our own inner wisdom, like holds the key to everything. She kind of unlocks the mysteries that are within us. Our blood does that. And because when we're on our period, the veils between the worlds are the thinnest. And so it's such a potent time to come into that deep stillness and just receive, just listen. With the moon, when the moon is in her archetype of the crone, it's the dark moon. So we can't see a speck of light. It's just complete darkness. And that is just, the moon is our invitation, the earth is our invitation, because when we think of the winter, it's the same thing. It's that complete like darkness and stillness, just retreat within. And so that's what La Luna is giving us permission to do, because she's waning, she's slowing, or she's waning into her darkness. She's come into her darkness. It's all yin energy as the moon descends or wanes. And that's what we're called to do during the time of the crone. And so sitting with the question of where is that opportunity to become so completely still, to just surrender and let go of everything And that's where the crone is at. She's on the verge of death. She's let everything go. There's no more masks that need to be held up. There's no more doing. She's just in complete surrender to the mystery. She's on that verge. And so that's the invitation for us, is just when we're in that crone medicine, is where can I just surrender and let all the masks go? Where can I slow down and rest and retreat and just be with the wise woman that is within, with the ancient self that is always, always within. And the crone is closest to source because she's on the verge of the end of her life. And that's where we are when we're on our period. We're the closest to source energy. The veils are so thin. And so that mystery, the feminine mysteries, are just like right at the fingertips when we're on our bleed. And so something to sit with is, how do you slow down when you're on your period? Do you stay with your same, do, or do you allow that deep retreat to happen? Do you allow that deep listening to happen? And with our blood and the crone, we're always receiving guidance from the universe, source, divine, goddess, God, whatever name it is that aligns for you. But we're always receiving the wisdom and the guidance that's there. It's just we often don't slow down enough to really, really hear that innate knowing, that wisdom that is always being relayed or spoken to us. And that's the deep invitation during the archetype of the crone, is just the slowing down. And it just reminds me of that, like the softest, slowest breath, and just lingering into the pauses and really allowing that stillness to take over. And so what does it look like for you when you're on your period? Is it like go same as the rest of your cycle? Or are you allowing that space to really slow down and receive? And a practice that I do is just free bleeding. So not using anything. And that is such an invitation, because I can't leave the house as much. I can't do because I'm just allowing my body to release like my blood. And so that free bleeding is like, you have to slow down. You have to stop and just be with what is. And just seeing what's in store there for you with that deep slowing down. So however you can support yourself to slow down into that ancient wisdom. And the shadow self of the crone can look kind of like the martyr energy, brutal, unforgiving, very like bitter and lonely and judgmental. Because she's at the end of her life and she hasn't gotten to do the things that she wanted to do. That's what it can look like. Like she's just alone and bitter and self-pitying. She feels defeated because she didn't get to live out the dreams that she had wanted to live out. And so that can be that resentment towards the world. And so the invitation with that is, when you slow down and like really hone in on your blood and hear the mysteries or receive the wisdom, the mysteries of your blood, is just like what that like, it's like sitting in that potent stillness and just asking like, who is the woman that I'm forever becoming, right? Because everything is within us. And so it's almost like an unbecoming. It's all within us, but we're just coaxing her out from underneath the deepest layers. And so that like, who is the woman, what wisdom do you have for me? What would you have me do? Those questions with your inner crone allows her to be heard and you to receive her wisdom, so that those dreams are lived out in this lifetime, so that longing and resentment isn't there of a life that wasn't lived. When we drop into that deep inner knowing, that deep wisdom, that's where the truths that are in alignment with our soul, that are in alignment with our highest self. That's where they are, is that deep, deep darkness, that deep, deep, deep stillness. And so questions to sit with your inner crone, or to sit with at this time, is just, how can I slow down a little bit more? Where can I surrender? Because the waning part of the moon is that surrender. She's just letting everything fall away. La Luna is just letting everything fall away. And so how can I slow down even more? How can I surrender even more, knowing that this release, this letting go, allows the space for what wants to come in, So the crone can feel like the deepest, deepest exhale, and also the pause right before the inhale comes, because she's on the threshold between death and rebirth, right? And so we essentially die on our period. Our body is letting everything go. And so where can you let even more go, so that you can create space for what wants to come in, for that rebirth, which happens with the slightest sliver of the new moon after the darkest moon, right? It's like that spring after the darkest winter. And so just that shedding and shedding and shedding and release. And how can I let the things that die really, really die? And that's the crone, is the death, to make space for the rebirth. And so that dying allows for that ancient wisdom to be heard, that inner knowing, the mysteries that the blood contains to be received, and just spoken into your being. And so that deep, deep rest and stillness, and just where can that come in a little bit more. Beautiful practice during the dark moon is yoga nidra, just to take you in between, into the space in between, across the veil, to receive from that ancient wise self. So deep meditations, yoga nidra. Traditionally in India, yoga wasn't practiced when a woman was on her bleed. And so you might start to bring in those practices too, where there's no physical activity, there's no intense yoga, just maybe free bleeding feels good, but just where can you bring in the practices that support you, so that you can go into that deep, 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 deep rest, as opposed to the movement and the doing. So it's just the being. And that's the crone. So yes, posting a picture of your inner crone in the group and what it is that she embodies, and any questions, just emailing me or posting in the group.